Welcome students to another day in the foods classroom. We are having a ton of fun taking and cooking up all these different types of grain foods, these breads. The one that we're going to be doing today is for some big chewy pretzels, and we're making some accommodations to fit this recipe into the time period that we have here at school. Pretzels is working with, instead of a quick bread, we're working, and instead of baking powder and baking soda, instead we're going to be taking and using as our leavening some yeast, which is slightly different. And yeast spreads usually take about 3 hours from start to finish to get them. And like I said, we're going to be making some adjustments so that we can play with the yeast spread, work with a stiff dough, and yet come out with a product at the end of the day. So we've got some big chewy pretzels, and when I say big, I'm talking big. Previous to this, I've gone ahead and washed my hands for 20 seconds. I have assembled all of my ingredients. I have assembled all of my equipment, and I have even gone ahead and preheated my oven to 425 degrees. It's preheating right now. Maybe we'll hear the ding as we're going along. So I read through again the recipe. I think I'm good, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Step number 1 in this one is to take and to dissolve our yeast in the water. Now the water is up on the list of ingredients, and it's a very specific amount. It says that we need to have 1 1/3 cups of warm water. The way that you tell that it's warm water, is that you're going to turn on your water, you're going to let it run until it no longer feels cold on the inside of your wrist. It will feel neither hot nor cold. That is the perfect temperature. And I've gone ahead and pre-measured that amount. I have 1 1/3 cups right here. I'll pour that right into my large bowl. What size bowl? Did you say large bowl? The answer is hopefully yes, you have your large bowl. And again, this is 1 1/3 cups of water. The second ingredient that I'm going to be putting in is yeast. Yeast is a naturally occurring phenomenon even that we're going to be using to help leaven our bread. It's going to take and make our product rise. It's going to give off carbon dioxide gas that then gets trapped inside of the flour's gluten. Now, when I go to the grocery store, I can buy it in very big quantities. I can buy it in very small quantities. If you were wanting to do this at home, you can buy little tiny envelopes of yeast that are probably, 75 cents for 3 tablespoons worth, and that would be great. But here at school, I measure a large quantity. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure off 1 tablespoon of yeast. It's a little bit tricky. A little bit small right here rather than my big container. I just used a small one. So pardon me while I take and fake this just a little tiny bit as I go ahead and level that off. Now when I put this yeast in the water, I want to be careful not to just dump it in one spot, because this yeast wants to take and glum together. So if I dump it in one spot, it'll turn into a big wad of like gum, and it'll take forever to have it dissolve out. Instead, I'm going to take this and I'm going to sprinkle it gently over the top. And I'm giving it as much exposure to that water as possible. And over time, about 5-ish minutes, it's going to take and swell, and then it's going to sink. And I want that all to happen before I add in my other ingredients. So I'm going to place this just to the side for the time being as I go on to the next step, which is to melt the margarine. And this is our leavening agent. It's going to make the product rise. The next thing is to melt the margarine for a little bit in our microwave, 30 to 40 seconds. Make sure you have something over the top. You can see this is a half of a stick, and that would be equal to 1/4 of a cup, which is the amount that we need in our recipe. I've previously done that, so you can see right inside here, I've got some melted margarine. So it's ready to go. Step number 3, preheat the oven. That's ready to go. Step number 4 is to prepare our baking sheet. Now you don't have to use aluminum foil on the cookie sheet, but it sure saves on some cleanup. So here at school especially, we're going to make sure that we cover our cookie sheet with a sheet of aluminum foil. It wants to be the size of the cookie sheet plus a little bit. And the reason why I want it plus a little bit is because I want it to hang over the edges so that I can pinch it and adhere it to the cookie sheet itself. I found that if you don't do that, sadly, one too many times, that piece of a foil will scooch off the end like a magic carpet ride, and you've lost your pre-cooked product onto the floor, which is not a fun thing. I'm also going to take and grease it. And of course, our head chefs are going to be picking up our nonstick cooking sprays. And when you put this on, please don't spray over the walkway or over your kitchen floor. Do it right on your countertop so the overspray is caught by the counters. If this gets onto our floor, oh my goodness, so easy to slip and fall. So we're going to take about 10 to 12 inches away, have my cookie sheet a slight angle, and we're just going to go back and forth real quickly. There's a light spray on that. There's no rivers of oil running down, and that is now ready to go. So hopefully, through the magic of television, our yeast is going to be having sat for 5 minutes. I'm faking it just a little bit. You're going to go with me, okay? You're just going to pretend like this is all the way dissolved. However, I will raise it up, and maybe you can see where the granules are no longer so finite. I've got some fuzzy blend. That's because that yeast has dissolved down. To speed it up, I am going to take my wooden spoon, and I'm going to start stirring this. You're going to see it's going to want to glom onto my spoon. That's what I don't want to really have happen. So I'm just going to keep stirring and speed up my process just a little bit. For you, I would prefer that you take and wait for the 5 minutes if you have it, but you've got to hustle. You've got to hustle. Get this all so that I don't have any floaties in it. Let me show you what I'm talking about with floaties. Can you see that? That's the yeast. I still want that to get dissolved because nobody wants to take and have a mouthful of yeast. So after that's all the way dissolved down, I'm on step number 5. We're going to add the salt to this yeast. And salt is going to add a little bit of flavor, but it's also going to be kind of like a babysitter for the yeast, and it's going to take and control it so it doesn't give off too much carbon dioxide. This yeast breads are a different beast altogether than the ones that we've been working with the quick breads, being baking powder and baking soda. So I have my 1 teaspoon measuring spoon right here, and of course I know I don't want to do this over the top of my mixture. I'm going to go ahead and put in 1 teaspoon of yeast, 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm now on to step number 6, which is to add the what? To add the sugar. What does sugar do? Actually, it's going to do 2 things in this one. It's not only going to make our dough taste a little bit sweeter, but the yeast needs some food for it to give off its carbon dioxide gas. So we're going to give it some food in the form of sugar. It will make it very happy. All right, after we've got our sugar in there, we're going to go ahead and add in another flavoring. It seems like it's going to be a weird flavoring. I know it is. Some dry milk, some powdered milk. And I will go ahead and measure out, it says 2 tablespoons of this powdered milk. We'll use our straight edge metal spatula, and here goes 1. And here goes 2. This might take just a little bit of convincing for it to also dissolve into it. So you're going to use your wooden spoon. You could even use your whisk to help beat down the clumps of, again, the yeast and the powdered milk, the dry milk. Stir that around. All right, so we are now down to step number 8, which is to finally add our melted margarine. Sitting right here in front of me is my melted margarine. I'll scrape this in. This is going to help make our bread more tender. And it's not going to want to mix in too well. It will want to float on the surface. That's okay for right now. And then we're going to add in 1 egg. It's always going to be easiest if you beat that egg before you add it in. So I'll go ahead and give this a nice little wrap on the side of my bowl. I like to, again, crack it one-handed. If you were to get any egg white on you, you would want to go wash your hands. Now I've got two options right here on beating this down. One is I could use my whisk. There are lots of different sizes of whisks, and I feel this whisk is maybe a little bit of an overkill for the smaller bowl. Can you use the whisk? Of course you can. But you can also use the fork. And what I'm trying to do is bring up a little bit of foam on the surface of this, and when I can't tell the difference between the egg whites and the egg yolks, I am good to go. That looks great. Let's go ahead and pour the beaten egg in. That's number 9. And then it says to go ahead and whisk these ingredients until they're well blended. So everything's all happy. Got that all whisked in. Now we're adding the flour in. So the flour, look how much flour this one has in it. We've been comparing them as we've gone from the pour batter to the drop batter to the soft dough. And now we've got a stiff dough, and we've got 4 cups of flour that we're putting in. So again, regardless of how much flour goes in, you still have to measure it accurately. And I'd suggest you get a partner to count with you, because distractions happen. And if you can't remember how much flour you've got going in or you've put in, you can mess up a whole recipe at this point. So that's 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Literally, that's what I do in my head. Sometimes I might even take some items and put them out in front of me. There was 1 cup, like that had been for the first cup, that had been for the second cup. This one right here is for the, and I don't ever put it out until I put my cup in. My 3rd cup, oh, that gets that one. And then I know that this one, since I need 4, would be my last one. It's so easy to just get a little distracted and you go, no, wait, what? How many have I put in? So this is the 4th cup. Pop that in there, and now we got some mixing that we're gonna do. And this is some pretty tough mixing, my friends. Pretty tough mixing. Let me get my place all cleared out just a titch. I've got a choice between using my wooden spoon and my whisk. Which one do you think I should use? Well, if you said wooden spoon, you are correct. If you said whisk, you got a mess. It's gonna be on your hand. Because again, we're gonna end up with the dough. Might not be right here in the beginning. And you might say, oh, the whisk would have been better. But let me tell you, as soon as that flour is absorbed by that liquid, you're gonna have something pretty tough to work with. So start kind of small, and I'm scraping down the sides of my bowl. And there's my oven. It says we're ready. And then as soon as I've got that all together, then I'm working with getting this, oh my gosh, I'm gonna break the wooden spoon. It's so thick. I'm not kidding you. Yeah, it's a little sticky still, but we're gonna make it so it's not so very sticky. And we're gonna do that by kneading. We previously talked about kneading when we did our biscuits, but the kneading that's gonna happen here is totally on a different scale, in as much as you're gonna be doing it for about 5 minutes. When you did your biscuit, you did it 10 kneads. How many times do you think you're gonna knead in 5 minutes? Oh my goodness. Well, let me tell you, it's a little bit of a workout. I'm gonna take some flour, and this is gonna take in a little bit more, maybe a 1/4 cup. I'm gonna have it handy. I'm also gonna have my straight edge metal spatula, and I'm gonna scrape the countertop as I'm kneading if it starts to get sticky. I'm gonna put not a ton, maybe a tablespoon. That might look like more than a tablespoon, but it's not. I'm gonna spread it all out over my surface. I'm gonna take my dough now, my stiff dough, and I'm gonna get it out onto that floured surface. And as I knead it, it's gonna become less sticky and more elastic. And this is the one time that you can knead. But here in class, we gotta watch our time, so you can't go crazy. We're gonna get that all off, and then I'm going to put some flour on my hands and rub that in. Do you remember how you knead? With the heel of your hand, not with your fingertips. You're gonna fold it in half, push, rotate. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do. Put a little bit maybe on the top right here, just a half a stitch. And I'm gonna get this kind of all coated with a little bit of flour to start out with. In the beginning, again, it's more sticky than it's gonna be as we get going. All right, so I'm just gonna watch this for about 5 minutes. Can you see? I'm rotate, fold, push, rotate, fold, push. Oh, sticking a little on my hands. Put a little more flour on. Maybe you want to put just a touch more on the countertop. But I don't want to get too much flour onto it because I don't want it to taste like flour. That would be, if I wanted it to taste like flour, go get a spoon and take a spoonful of it out of the flour container. Who wants to do that? So you can see, all of a sudden, my dough is not near as sticky as it was. Maybe a little bit sticky. May add just a little bit, only if it wants to be sticky. Sometimes you won't see any flour down there and yet it's not sticking. Go with it. That's gonna be the best thing. Now, I have been kneading in my lifetime 5 million, billion, gazillion, okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, a long, long, long time. And so I'm gonna kind of do this one-handed, and I'm gonna probably do it faster than you can even see. But I'm rolling, folding, pushing. It takes practice to become a speed kneader. And so I'm gonna be able to, I'm just a little bit sticky, I feel. So I'm gonna do it probably a little bit faster than you are, and that's okay because you don't wanna sit here and watch me knead for 5 minutes. But I'm gonna just do this as fast as I can to get this so that it's very elasticy. And I'm rolling it around to pick up a little of flour, a little bit elasticy, and I can tell by my texture what I'm doing. Okay? It's almost like the flour will stop being sticky on me. All right, so maybe I'm gonna do it for just about 2 minutes. I had a teacher once who told me the only time she makes bread by hand rather than by a machine is when she's really mad at somebody. And that's a good physical workout. You would even almost hear me huffing and puffing up here as I take and knead this. All right, you can see that it's not wanting to stick very much, and that's a good plan. Okay, I think that we are just about there. I feel the need to do it about 20 more kneads, and that's gonna be it. But I'd like you to try to time it. In the end here at school, students, I'm gonna say it's time to stop kneading. So you wanna get as much done as you possibly can. Okay, we're gonna say I need it for 5 minutes because I'm ready to be done. All right, so what I want to do right now is we are going to be taking these pretzels and making them into long snakes. I'm scraping off the sticky stuff that might be on here from when I was kneading. Now this is supposed to make 4 to 5 huge pretzels. If you have 4 people in your group, that's great, make 4. If there are 3 people in your group, make 6, all right? But to get 4, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to kind of make this into a log. And I'm gonna take the log and I'm gonna split it in half. And then I'm gonna make it into a log. And I'm going to split it in half, okay? Whoops, accident over here. Then, same thing here. I'm gonna make it into a log and I'm trying to get these all to be the same amount of dough, okay? After I've got them into these individual little logs, I'm gonna do you're not watching me do this. I'm going to take and I'm gonna make each one of these into a long rope. Now some of you will go like this and you won't get anywhere. So through years of experience, let me give you a couple of guidelines. Number 1, start far away from you and with your hands spread out, you're gonna stretch as you roll it towards you. Then pull it back up to the top and stretch as you roll it towards you. You're gonna make this huge, long rope that's like 20 to 25 inches, which is about the length of your arm. I'm not kidding you, huge. You wanna get them kind of skinny-ish. Don't forget that you got these tail ends. When it starts to get really long, it's hard to keep even. So you can see I'm just kind of faking this here. I'm rolling this one end, but I'm always pulling it away from me. And then let's see. Yep, that looks pretty long. So how do you make a pretzel? Pretzels were given to, legend has it, was made by, where it was some bread that was made by a monk in like the 1600s, and he gave it to the children who were good at school, that were good at their prayers, and it's supposed to represent the folding of arms. So this is the way you make a pretzel. First off, you make it into a jump rope and into a horseshoe shape. Then you're going to cross it once, cross it twice. How many times did I cross? And then you're gonna take this and you're just gonna flip this up and over. I know, cool. And then we're gonna place that onto our cookie sheet. Let me do one more. I'm not gonna take the time to do all of the pretzels for the video. We're gonna just do 2. So again, I'm gonna take, this time I'm going backwards. I'm gonna take and pull this and stretch it. Pull and stretch it as I come. I'm not gonna go back and forth and back and forth. I'm just gonna go one way, and I'm going to stretch as I roll. Stretch as I roll it until it's as long as my arm is. And it's kind of funny, you'll pull it and it wants to go back. Let's say, boom, it'll want to just kind of zip on back. That's the gluten. Hard to tell, I know, from that. Okay, once it gets really long, jump the rope, make it into a U, upside down U. Then you're gonna cross it how many times, do you remember? Once, twice, make sure you leave some tails right here, and then you're going to flip it up and over. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other 2. Make sure all of these are gonna fit onto your cookie sheet, and then let's go on to the next step. The next step is to make, we're gonna be putting raw eggs on top of our pretzels. And that's gonna make the shininess, but it's also going to help our toppings adhere to it. Do you know what I'm talking about when you see the shininess of a pretzel? That's come about because of beaten egg that's been put on the top of it. Kind of a weird thing that eggs will do. And again, I'm taking this, I could use a whisk on this if I wanted to, but I just think our whisk is a little bit big. So I'm beating this with my fork, or if you had a small whisk, that would be pretty cool. If you had a mini whisk, that would be a perfect use for this in a small bowl. And once I can't tell the difference between the egg whites and the egg yolks, I'm ready to take my pastry brush. Your head chefs will pick this up. And my pastry brush, I'm just gonna arrange that just a little bit better. And brush it. Now I don't wanna put a ton on, all right? I'm just gonna paint it. I'm not gonna slop it. And I'm gonna paint this right onto the dough. I shouldn't see it running down the edges, but I do want to paint down near the edges because I want the shininess to be everywhere. And I'm only going to do that, get it there, if I paint it on. Now, if I'm making my pretzels at home, there is one other step that you would do beforehand. Pretzels like this are usually dipped into a pot of boiling water. I know, weird. Which is going to stop the yeast in its tracks a touch. So they'll have a slightly tougher flavor and won't rise quite as much. These ones are going to rise more, but that's what we got to work with when we are here at school. Boil them for about, or simmer them for about 30 seconds, 30 to 45 seconds. Okay, I've gone ahead, I painted that all well. Now I'm ready to put my topping on. Here at school, we'll have 3 choices of topping. We'll have a choice between Parmesan cheese, cinnamon sugar, or finally, if you like the salt of a coarse salt, this is called the sea salt, coarse sea salt. All right, you choose. You choose one. Don't combine all 3. I'll tell you, it's disgusting. I've had one too many students want to try that, and so I put my foot down, choose one. But you can choose one, and then someone else in your kitchen can choose the other, and someone else in the kitchen can choose another. But no one's gonna have it all. I am a big lover of the Parmesan. So your head chefs will pick up one of these shakers and bring them back. They'll bring back some salt and some cinnamon and a Parmesan cheese. And I like to put almost as much as I can on there because that's how much I like the Parmesan cheese one. All right? And then I will put them in the oven and have them bake. Now, if you're really fast, maybe you might get them out of the oven in time to eat it, but I doubt it. Probably most of you are gonna be coming back and picking these up either after school, or I'll save them and give them to you the day after we make them. Just whatever time happens to be, because it's a little labor intensive on getting them to this point. But these are big chewy pretzels. They are, they're a food that's been around for a long time. They are leavened by yeast. They are not a quick bread. They are a stiff dough, and you do lots of kneading and a couple things different. So I hope you enjoy them, and we will see you later. Bye-bye.